Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, we are back again in June with our champion ranking series. We already have done the first 3 videos in the series with 2023 and 2022 champions ranked specifically. And now we are going to be ranking all the classes in their respective strength. Before I get any further, please do not miss out on your chance to win $100. We're going to be giving away $300 total on July 4th. To enter, only thing you have to do is Duel my in-game profile, TheKiryu, and submit the screenshot in the link provided below in the video description. And that is it. Submit your screenshot, and on July 4th, you might be one of the 3 lucky winners that gets $100. Right, that said, obviously, as with the rest of these videos, the mandatory disclaimer here that all of the points that I'm going to be making are going to be a mixture of my own personal views in combination with current game relevance and trends of these champions. There is a level of subjectivity to all of these rankings because it's unavoidable to escape it. I do not work for Kabama. I don't have like sheets of data that I can purely analyze. And with that, keep in mind that we all see the game differently. We all focus on different game modes. We care more for different playstyles or mastery setups, and we all have our own personal preferences. And what's amazing for you might not be amazing for me, and vice versa. But overall, I do try my best to kind of reflect where the game is currently with these videos. That said, the rankings have changed, and some of the positions almost changed, but there's definitely much more discussion. And one thing that I definitely want to point out is that right now, I think all of the classes are much closer together, their strength-wise, than they used to be. We used to have relatively clear kind of like favorites, for a while it was either Mutant, then it was Cosmic, and so on and so forth. But at the moment, I think Kabam is doing a very good job overall kind of balancing things out. So these are the old rankings in my December video where I marked Cosmic as top class, Science as second best class, Mutant as third, Mystic as fourth, Skill as fifth, and sixth one was Tech. And I don't think that's accurate anymore. Hence the need for these videos every 6 months. Right, let's take a look at Aunt May, as we always do, and start this off. And to begin with, I think I'm immediately going to be extremely controversial. I truly will be. A lot of people will dislike me for this, and a lot of people will jump into comment section immediately. I get it. That would be the first instinct of many. People get very passionate about this game. But mutants. I'm putting mutants at the bottom right now. It's not that they are far behind anybody, but I think what best characterizes the current situation mutants are in is the fact that vast majority of the people that I know prayed not to get a mutant rank 4 to 5 gem when we got the class gem from EOP. Myself included. And so did tons of other people. And the reason why mutants have gone down from being the top class about a year and a half ago to being, in my opinion, slightly the weaker class. Not by much. Again, as I said, I do think that there's not much separating 6th to 4th. I think we have 2 clear top 2 classes. And then I think 4th, 5th, 6th, and 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th are very, very close. I'm going to be putting mutants at the bottom now. So that's downgrade from their previous position. Third. And the reason for it, in last 2 years, if we discount Dani Moonstar now, because we can't really put her into calculations too much because she's a brand new champion, we don't really know how she's going to perform, then in the last 2 years, they have not gotten really anything compared to all the other classes. Toad's good, but he's not amazing. And then it's just nothing too special. In fact, if you take a look at even further, in the last 3 years, last 3 years, we've only gotten Kitty, which again is arguably the best mutant in the game. That is it. That is it. And if you take a look at any other class in the last 3 years, not only they have received significantly more champions, they also received more great champions. And we do see that decline in the mutant popularity every day. I for most part, when I take a look at what my team's using in AQ, not many mutants there. When I take a look at what my teammates are using in Alliance War, ain't too many mutants. Obviously we do have the Kitty and Archangel and occasional Magneto somewhere. Not that much, Obviously there are a couple others here and there, but overall I'd say mutant is least represented class in Alliance Quest, least represented class in Alliance War, attack and defense as well, really, because one of the things that really, really does hurt mutants is that out of all interclass relationships, mutants get pounded in the ground the hardest, which is basically the kind of like final deciding factor why I decided to put mutants on bottom. Because virtually all of the mutant champions become defensively absolutely useless in front of, significant portion of the new tech champions, Like mutants, almost all of them suffer from the devastating condition that Nimrod exists, but it's not just Nimrod that completely shuts them down. And when we're taking a look at the class wheel, and yeah, obviously, like, Mystic champions are good against Cosmics and stuff like that, but tech champions just pound the entire mutant class in the ground without help of retaliation, really, with the only kind of saving grace being Magneto. But even that is kind of taken away recently with the new additions because, we get more non-metal tech champions. We get more champions that can't have their ability accuracy reduced, so on and so forth. But just, smack through Magneto like he doesn't exist. And realistically, mutant class, I think, has still a solid, strong top 4, top 5. And that's about it. Then you go down lower than that, I think the overall quality and usability really does fall off. Again, obviously in mutant class, we do have the Archangel, we do have Domino that's, extremely present in Battlegrounds. We have Omega Red, Alliance War and Battlegrounds Machine, now Kitty Pryde, arguably the best mutant champion, and then we have like Bishop, APOC, obviously is still amazing, but aside from those champions, I personally really love Havoc, but that's a bit subjective. But other than that, there's just not that much. There are many very good champions, but they become our go-to champions, I think, less and less often. And yeah, I love mutant class. I think there are plenty awesome mutants, but I don't think anybody can deny that every single other class is moving ahead significantly quicker and faster. And I can easily see mutants bouncing back, like, couple of new good champion releases and like a buff or something. But at the moment, right now, I do think mutant class is the weakest class. Again, not by much. I don't think there's a massive, massive drift behind that. But they have definitely been steadily moving downwards from being the top class in the game to, second to third. And now I think every other class objectively has outpaced them. That being said, class number 5, I'm going to be putting in Tech. And Tech is the class that was the weakest 6 months ago. And it is undeniable that so far they have been getting quite a bit of support. And also, another major thing to include here is the Shuri's buff as well. And with the new Tech releases, Tech class has definitely improved. But I do think that a lot of people are kind of at the moment in this, Tech class craze because a lot of these champions are brand new. And I'm still relatively skeptical on how big of an impact several of these will have. And when it comes to 2022 releases for tech class that we kind of were hyping up, Sam Wilson, unfortunately, is one of the weaker champions of 2022. Doom was massively overhyped to a point he doesn't, even make it into tech top 5, maybe top 10. Omega Sentinel's popularity has somewhat decreased as well. And now Shuri was obviously an absolute meme until she got buffed, and that's helpful. And in 2022, we have Future Ant-Man, which I think without a doubt is an amazing and popular champion. Then we have Shocker and Will Vision, which, a lot of people are kind of on the fence. Seems that there could be something really good, but to be honest, in both cases, seems that they could benefit with a tune-up. And then obviously Lady Deathstrike we can't really discuss because, well, not properly in the game yet. So I do think that tech class is not the weakest class in the game anymore. And I do think that tech class is, in fact, moving forwards in a better direction. But unlike other classes, they're not being quite as successful with that, I would say. They are getting a lot of attention right now, but who knows how long that will last. And they are a bit hit and miss type of situation where, or at the very least, hit and be mediocre. Where tech is obviously not a bad class. None of the classes are bad in the game. But again, the last year's editions are definitely hit and miss. Some of them were extremely overhyped. And this year, again, we do have one definite front runner that's been added. But other than that, I don't think tech class still has the most extensive kind of variety. Tech class is extremely good at countering mutants. And then everything else is significantly more situational. Yeah, I do think that tech class is also still a bit, to a degree, kind of like in their little bubble, which, champions like Future Ant-Man are changing it up. And but I do think that tech class need more champions like Ghost or, I don't know, Starhead, Spider-Man, that are great against mutants, but just great everywhere. Great against a ton of different champions. How many of the tech champions are like amazing against mystics, let's say, or skill champions and stuff like that? Tech class is again very, very, very effective at killing mutants, not as effective at doing the rest of the stuff. And that is why I am putting tech in spot number 5. And that said, moving on to spot number 4, I'm going to put Mystic class, and they are above tech exactly for the reason that I just talked about tech class, except that they finally managed to overcome. I think mutant class always, or almost always since the beginning of the game, has been put in a box of Mystic Dispersion, where virtually all the new champions that are designed with Mystic Dispersion in mind. And for most part, the situation was like, if there are buffs present in that fight, Mystic champions can be good. If there are no buffs in those fights, then Mystic champions will be overall underperforming compared to other class champions. And I do think that finally we can say that that is no longer the case. And, well, what changed that? Well, the first thing was obviously Tigra, and the fact that Tigra is now supremely popular and not just some, quote unquote, sweaty, try-hard elitist champion, where so many more people have been learning and practicing Tigra because her speed, utility, and damage is undeniable. But Tigra is one of those champions that will just nuke just about anybody that she can go up against, buffs or no buffs, be damned. And then we can carry on with Spider-Man Supreme, who does similar things. The biggest addition to Mystic nuke business is Juggernaut. Juggernaut is exceptionally amazing for a ton of variety matchups, and not just against Cosmic champions. He's great at killing Killmongers and Korgs and what have yous, and just running through bishops and so on and so forth. So Juggernaut, Tigra are exactly the type of champions that Mystic class needed. And then there's Absorbing Man, who is also a relatively different take on a Mystic class, and he might not be the fastest in a generic matchup, but with his tunable versatilities, he, in no small part resembles Science Champion in a sense much more than a Mystic Champion because of how versatile he is and how he can adjust the fights, in his case, without needing debuffs like Science Champions. But you guys hopefully get what I mean. And then obviously America Chavez tune-up has been quite big for the Mystic class, and then we still have Diablo, and de facto the best Mystic champion obviously is still Dr. Doom, who is, providing you with an excellent fight control. And Doom is kind of like the most mysticky of the good mystics in a sense that he does have the power control, he does have the buff control, he does get significantly better in buff heavy fights, but he's still capable in fights where there are no buffs. He might not be at the top of that list, but still quite capable. And then obviously, I do not think we can move away from the fact that Mystic is still the defensive king class as well. Most of the highest HP champions in the game reside in Mystic class, in between Rintra and Sasquatch and Man-Thing and so forth. And then you can add in like Mangog, Mojo, Mephisto as additional excellent Mystic defenders. And yeah, I do think that overall importance and impact of Mystic class is growing and is improving. And even though, they stayed static in the 4th place, just like 6 months ago, I think the overall quality of Mystic class definitely has gone up. And there is a good argument to be made on putting Mystic class into the 3rd spot as well. Because yeah, they have finally largely gotten rid of that Mystic dispersion box where they will perform great if there are tons of buffs and they will suck if there aren't. It's just no longer the case. And even though in 2023 we only have had one addition to the Mystic class, been Absorbing Man, which is objectively the best champion of the year so far, and then the 2022 additions in between Rintra and Spider-Man Supreme being the more successful additions on top of the Juggernaut buff, I think strikes just about the right balance for them to maintain the position that they are at in, because spot number 3 goes to a class that went up from 5th, so a significant improvement. So instead of being the 2nd quote-unquote weakest class, I would say that they are now the 3rd strongest, and that is skill. And skill has definitely 100% been solidifying itself as one of the top classes. And I do think that there is somewhat of a little bit of a gap of the top 3 and the bottom 3 classes, and I think skill deservedly has moved into the upper half. If you take a look at 2023 releases, I do personally think Baron Zemo is not as amazing as he was hyped to be, but he's by no means a bad champion. Moondragon is very new, but I do think she will be decent as well. But obviously we have Kate, who I personally perceive as 2nd, 3rd best. Well, I perceive her as 3rd best champion of the year, and she is amazing. She's very strong. She has tons of utility, plenty of damage. We already see her in Alliance War and Battlegrounds all over the place, which is no small feat for a brand new champion. And then if you take a look at 2022 editions, there have been some less successful ones, but namely we do have Valkyrie that is completely running through the contest wild right now. Absolutely conquering a ton of questing nodes, Alliance War, Battlegrounds, pretty much everywhere. Valkyrie's stock is just rising and it doesn't seem that it's slowing down. Then we still have Black Cat, who initially was underestimated as well for sure, and Black Cat is definitely a very solid addition to skill class 2. And in case of skill class, it's not just that. A lot of the champions are gaining more traction and popularity. A lot of champions are regaining their position, but stock of Crossbones, for instance, is growing and more people are paying attention to this guy. Then we have obviously Kingpin and Nick Fury and Shang-Chi running all across the contest. And then with the arrival of Battlegrounds, more people are paying attention to more of these champions and they are more significant. And that translates to the rest of the game in Alliance War and pretty much everywhere else. Even some of the less successful, let's say, skill champions often make themselves known in several of these game modes, like Karnak, for instance. A solid buff, significantly underestimated, but when the time calls, he, finds himself in the top tier decks and also 8.3 and content like that. Massacre has gained a ton of momentum to a point where people are taking him to a rank 5, and he is one of the more feared Battlegrounds attackers in particular, but obviously with that increased attention from Battlegrounds, he's being used more and more pretty much everywhere else. And we are at a point now where there are just so many amazing and fast skill champions that there are real hard choices to be made. Which ones are going to get the catalyst? Which ones are going to get the spotlight? Which ones are going to get into the deck? And yeah, I do think that skill class has definitely proven itself across the game, across the contest. And I love that because it wasn't all that long ago when skill was objectively the weakest class. I think if we were looking at 2021, 2020, skill class wasn't doing all that great. But then we got the Mole Man buff and Kingpin buff, and more, Shang-Chi got released, and now we have Kate Bishop and Valkyrie got released, and the skill class got completely transformed, and the overall quality and importance is just growing here without a doubt. So here we are. Skill class, in my opinion, takes spot number 3. And yeah, that is for it. And another reason why skill class is up top is because skill class actually does a great job punching against the class wheel, because many of the skill champions do extremely well against mutant defenders as well. And most importantly, skill class is that class that does amazing across the entire class wheel. You can take skill champions pretty much against any class champions at large, and you will normally do quite well. Obviously, they are best against science, but they're perfectly comfortable taking down cosmics and mystics and whatnot. And I do think that there's quite a lot of strength in that too. And that leaves us with top 2 classes here. And the top 2 discussion. Now, this is where it gets serious, and I was really scratching my head here, because it's effectively a discussion of a select small group of champions carrying the entire class on one hand versus an army of very, very good champions, just maybe not absolutely and really insane. And it is the question of which one's more important. Whether you have, 20 top tier champions or 5 insane champions, and that is largely the battle there. On a personal note, I have my favorite class. I have had my favorite class for many, many years now, and it is Science class. And if I would have to play this game using only champions from one single class, it would be Science class. However, it is undeniable that majority of the fights in the game right now are being done with Cosmic class. I do not think that the difference is that huge anymore. I do think that about a year ago, perhaps even 6 months ago, more fights were done with Cosmic champions than potentially all other 5 classes combined. I think with, release of other class nukes in Science class, we have Spot and Hulk. In Mystic class, we have Tiger and Jugs. In Tech class, we obviously have like Ghost and Starkey and whatnot, and so on and so forth. That amount has been reduced, but I still sincerely believe that the most fights in the game are done by Cosmic class. And there is a very good reason for it. So I'm still going to put my personal favorite class in second spot. And Science class has been absolutely thriving. To a point, again, if we're taking a look at the largest amount of really, really good champions, it is the Science class. I don't think you can argue against that. If we take a look at the additions to Science class so far, we have Cassie Lang. That's an absolute banger. Sandman is like arguably the only relative miss, but it's hard to say that because pretty much nobody has much experience with Sandman. So I'm gonna ignore that for now. And if you're taking a look at 2022 champions, every single one of them is great to absolutely amazing. Now, Jessica Jones obviously is a pain in the ass defender. Quicksilver, in my opinion, overrated and primarily defender, but definitely has a crap ton of utility in his kit, and there are a ton of people who love him. Scorpion is about as good of a science champion as you can make. We have Spot, which is, an official science nuke type of champion. We have Titania that has been proving herself a ton, and science just has not really missed. Even here, 2021, Overseer, Spider-Man 2099, Mr. Negative, and Anti-Venom, all of those are very, very high caliber champions. Maybe not your cup of tea, but you can't deny that all of them have gotten exposure, game time, investment, and power. And then going even further, 2020, we have like Pig and we have Immortal Abomination. And then we do have iHulk, who has reduced his value overall recently. And then we have Red Guardian, who never really took off. But still, they have went through like 3.5 years of basically every new champion being amazing. And then we go further, we have Fantastic Four with, three of them are amazing, except for Invisible Woman. And even further, we have Cap, Infinity War, and Void. So yeah, Science Class just doesn't miss often. And with every single one of these new additions, the power, the utility, the ferocity of Science Class just increases. And they, for the longest time, missed like a really, really high damage output champions. But now we have Hulk, and now we have Bot that are like just generic nuke type of champions. And then obviously, if Human Torch works, he's like about as nukey of a champion as you can find. Still the best science champion in the game. And yeah, and that is Science Class. And if you're looking for anything aside from access to a lot of buffs, then you will find it in Science Class, unlike in other classes. I do believe that virtually every single immunity is present in Science Class, aside from some very obscure ones, obviously. Um, I do think that, almost every type of debuff you're going to find it in Science Class that deals with miss mechanics, that deals with evade, that deals with unstoppables, that deals with regeneration, that deals with power rate, that deals with combat power rate, that deals with power stings and weaknesses and disorients, and everything is there in Science Class for you to use, and that is why I personally love this class so much. Ultimately, I do think for Science Class to be able to overtake Cosmic Class as the strongest and best class in the game, they do need more of the raw power. Because that is how Cosmic Class lands itself ahead of others. And now we need to talk about Cosmic Class. And I would wager that still, if we take a look at every single fight done in Marvel Construct Champions, any given day or any given month, and then we split those classes down per which class champions you use, Cosmic would be by far and away the most used class. Which is not the only reason why they are up top, but it is a very good indicator of their power. And the reason for it is because Cosmic is the definition of raw damage and speed at the moment in the game. Typically, that is how you characterize Cosmic class. Tons of buffs, some debuffs, and a ton of damage. They normally do not have the largest amount of utility. Typically, they have just about enough utility to, get by or get the fights done. But whatever they, might not excel at in terms of versatility, they definitely make up for in terms of damage. And then when you take a look at the top of the Cosmic class, it's hard to argue against that lineup. And it's hard to argue against Hercules. Hercules is by far and away the biggest bane in the Kabam's existence currently. There's a very good reason why every time you would ask a Kabam about Sunstar Hercules, they would either have a PTSD, a panic attack, or, just start laughing and telling you it's never going to happen. Because he is that powerful. He is by far and away the most powerful champion in the game at the moment overall, all things considered. And he's so powerful that somehow, despite the logic dictating that Battlegrounds is not a place for a ramp-up champion, he still dominates there. And then obviously he's still present in Alliance War, maybe not as much, but then every other area of the game. Half of the guide at the moment is just use Hercules. Hercules and few revives and done. He's just a monster. So that gives Cosmic Class a ton of power. But putting Hercules aside, then we can move on to CGR. Arguably the quickest questing machine that we have, or one of the quickest questing. Then we take a look at Galen, which is an absolute monster for short to medium fights. They really just did make a Cosmic that's immune to Nullify. And then obviously we have Hulkling. About as simple, as straightforward, and as effective champion that you'll find. Hit the opponent, hit their block a few times, drop level 2, watch things die. And obviously, the immunities, everything else, it's nice. But none of that would really blow anybody away if these champions wouldn't be an absolute damage machines. And we still have an oldie but goldie Hyperion that is extremely powerful still even today. We have Null that's hanging in there, very solid offensive and defensive champion, kind of getting underestimated slightly at the moment, but definitely puts in work. Gore is gaining more popularity right now. And then there are a ton of champions that would be noteworthy in other classes and aren't even getting mentions in Cosmic Class as well. Like Gamora, for instance. A lot of people hate on Gamora, but she's a nuke. And she nukes well. But Cosmic Class is, so fast, so dangerous that most people just don't care. I mean, it's like Captain Marvel movie, don't get much love. Angela doesn't get too much love these days anymore. Cersei, that's an amazing champion, doesn't get much attention because of how dominant the very top of this class is. Now, realistically, Cosmic is also one of the biggest classes in the game, if not the biggest class. And honestly, there are a lot of crap champions too. And that is kind of the difference of Cosmic and Science. Science, you can easily find 20 really, really good champions. In Cosmic Class, you're probably going to stop at like 7 or 8. But those 7 or 8 are running rampant around the contest right now. Take a look at yourself, your account, your behaviors. Like, how many times you just Hercules and brr, or CGR and brr, or Hulkling and brr. Yeah, these are monsters. The point that many of still very, very good champions again. So here we are. Now, I do think that class relationships are going to shift because of release of 7 stars. And, which 7 stars are going to get released and which of them are going to be more effective, unawakened at low SIG and stuff like that is going to play quite major role. But at the moment, as we are standing, I think Cosmic Class still stands tall. I do not think that there is a big difference. I do think that, as I said, we need a couple more, let's say, Science champions or Mystic champions that go absolute damage crazy mode for them to overtake it. And again, damage is not the only thing that I'm focusing myself with. Because, again, Kabam has managed to pack in just about enough utility in all of these damage codes to make them be viable for Alliance Quest, Alliance War, for questing, for Battlegrounds, pretty much everything. Because if they only had damage, we wouldn't be running them outside of casual cav queue or something. They don't. So plenty in their kit to establish them top of their game. For now. So that is my opinion at the moment about class relationships. I can't see Cosmic losing their crown relatively soon, especially considering that so far they only have had Adam Warlock, who I like, but I do think he was somewhat overhyped upon the release. I'm still trying to get used to him. If he does amazing, great, but so far I haven't necessarily been getting the results I really wanted to. And obviously 2022, we only got 3 Cosmics, all of them amazing though. So let's see how much help Cosmic gets throughout the rest of the year. Because without a doubt, you know, skill and science and mystic classes are gunning for them. So before I go, here is the write-up of the new rankings. Number 1, Cosmic. Number 2, Science. Number 3, Skill. Number 4, Mystic. Number 5, Tech. Number 6, Mutant. And that also means that tomorrow's video is going to be top 10 Mutant class champions. And catch you guys soon. Bye. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information